I have worked the grounds at Windsor for 19 years, and there is a stretch of garden behind the private houses where the rule is simple and it never changes. No camera goes there. Not for a newspaper, not for a magazine, not for anyone. I have turned away photographers. I have turned away reporters. I once turned away a man with a title who thought the rule did not apply to him. In 19 years, that rule never bent. And then one grey morning, I saw a stranger with a long lens standing exactly where no lens is ever allowed, and no one stopped him. 3 days later, that photograph appeared in a glossy magazine. It showed William and Catherine's children in their private garden at Windsor, the one place in the world they were meant to be free from cameras. The image was warm, the image was soft, and seated at the heart of it, smiling like the gentle centre of the family, was Camilla. William saw the magazine before breakfast. William did not shout. William did not throw it down. He simply went very still, the way a man goes still when something he swore to protect has been quietly handed to the world. Because William understood at once what this was. This was not a leaked photo. This was arranged, and it had been arranged by the one person he had told, plainly, to stay away from that garden. And then William did the unthinkable. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to like this video and subscribe so you do not miss a single update. William did not turn the page. The prince sat with the magazine open in front of him, and for a long moment he simply looked. He knew that garden. He knew the low stone wall behind it, the crooked apple tree, the exact bench where his children liked to sit. This was not a public lawn. This was the one corner of the world he had fought to keep quiet, and now it was printed across 2 glossy pages for anyone to see. Windsor was not just a house to William. A royal residence, in plain words, is a working home where a royal family actually lives, not only a place they visit for ceremony. Windsor was where his children could be children. Windsor was where the cameras were supposed to stop. And William had built that quiet with years of careful rules, precisely because he knew what happened when those rules failed. Catherine came in and saw the magazine, and the princess did not need to be told. Catherine looked at the photograph, then at William's face, and understood both at once. The children in the garden, the stranger's lens, the smiling figure at the centre who had no right to open that gate. Catherine felt the fear first, the cold parental fear, before the anger even arrived. The reaction moved through the family like a change in the weather. William saw the photograph and went silent. Catherine saw it and felt the fear rise before the anger. Anne was shown it an hour later and her jaw set hard. Camila, when she heard the family had seen it, looked away. The photograph had been published with an embargo that was broken. An embargo, in plain words, is an agreement not to publish something until an agreed time and in an agreed way. There had been an agreement. William remembered it exactly. And this photograph was not part of it. Someone had extended the access. Someone had opened a door that everyone had promised would stay shut. William turned the magazine over in his hands and read the small print beneath the image, the polite caption that described a happy family at home. The words were gentle. The words were warm, and that was the cruelty of it. The caption spoke of unity and love, while the photograph itself was proof that a promise had been quietly broken. William had learned, long ago, that the softest images often hide the sharpest betrayals. William thought of his mother without meaning to. He always did in moments like this. Diana had been chased by lenses her whole life, and the cameras had never let her rest, not even at the end. William had spent his adult life making sure his own children would never know that feeling, that sense of being hunted in their own home. And now, in a single glossy image, that promise had been broken inside the walls of Windsor itself. Catherine reached for the magazine and closed it gently, as if closing it could take the children back out of it. The princess did not raise her voice. Catherine only said that the children must not see it, and that they must never know a stranger had stood in their garden. William nodded, but William was already somewhere else in his mind, already back at the meeting weeks earlier, where this had all begun. Sophie arrived quietly, the way she always did when the family was hurting. The trusted confidant leaned toward Catherine and told her, low and careful, that the arrangement had changed at the last moment, and that the change had not come from the magazine. It had come from inside the family. Catherine did not answer, but Catherine's eyes moved to William, and William understood. This did not begin with a stranger and a lens. It began weeks earlier, in a warm meeting about family unity, where one boundary was drawn and one person decided to cross it. It did not begin as a betrayal. According to a documented household account later prepared for senior aides, it began as an idea about warmth. Camilla wanted the family to be seen as one. She had spent years being tolerated at the edges of it, and she believed a single gentle image of the modern royal family together could finally show the public that the old divisions were gone. Camilla wanted acceptance, and she convinced herself that a photograph could give it to her. The idea took shape as a magazine feature. A magazine feature, in plain words, is a planned set of photographs and words released together to shape how the public sees someone. Camilla imagined soft light, easy smiles, 3 generations in one frame. She imagined herself in the center of it, not as an outsider, but as the warm heart holding the family together. It was not a cruel dream, it was a hopeful one. That was what made what followed so painful. The photographs were meant to be handled through the press rota. A press rota, in plain words, is the small approved group of photographers allowed to cover official royal moments under strict agreed rules. The rota exists precisely so that nothing slips out that the family has not approved. It is a fence built out of trust, and a fence only works while everyone agrees to stand behind it. William and Catherine agreed to take part, but they agreed to very little. According to a private palace briefing, the couple approved only a small, controlled set of images, taken in a public setting with clear limits. And they drew one line that was not to be crossed under any circumstances. No photographs of the children in their private spaces, no cameras in the Windsor garden, not one. The reaction to that boundary told its own quiet story. William drew the line and meant every word of it. Catherine heard him and agreed without hesitation. Anne, when told later, considered it entirely reasonable, and Camilla nodded along with all of them, believing, at the time, that she agreed too. William made that line himself, and William made it plain. The prince explained quietly and without drama why it mattered so much to him. He spoke about his mother. He spoke about what it was like to grow up watched, hunted, printed. He said his children would have one place in the world where no lens could reach them, and that place was Windsor. Everyone in that room heard him. Everyone in that room agreed. Camilla agreed too. But in the weeks that followed, Camilla began to worry that the approved images were too stiff, too formal, too cold to do what she needed them to do. According to a recorded conversation kept by a senior aide, she spoke to the magazine's team about adding something warmer, something more human, something that showed the family relaxed and real. And the warmest image any family can offer is children at play. Camilla knew it. The magazine knew it. And slowly, the plan began to bend around the one line it was never supposed to touch. Here the framework asks us to be honest about her motive, because it was not simple cruelty. Camilla did not want to hurt the children. Camilla wanted to belong. She had spent so long being seen as the woman who did not quite fit that she reached, desperately, for the one image that might fix it. She told herself the children's garden was harmless. She told herself a gentle photograph could only bring the family closer. She told herself William would understand once he saw how lovely it looked. Every one of those thoughts was a way of not hearing the boundary he had drawn. So Camilla made a quiet arrangement. According to an internal note later circulated among private secretaries, she authorized the photographer to extend access during a private family weekend at Windsor, presenting it as an official continuation of the approved shoot. The staff on the ground assumed the access had been cleared at the highest level because it had come from the Queen. A private secretary, in plain words, is the senior aide who manages a royal's official business and carries their instructions. When the instruction comes from a queen, few people think to question it. That was how the stranger with the long lens came to be standing in a garden where no lens was ever allowed. The warning signs were there, and someone did try to raise them. According to a sealed account later described to senior household staff, one Windsor aide questioned the extended access on the morning of the shoot and was told, gently but firmly, that the Queen had approved it and that there was no cause for concern. The aide, unsure and outranked, stepped back. It was a small hesitation, quickly overruled. But that small hesitation was the last chance anyone had to stop what was coming, and it passed. William and Catherine knew none of it. The line of succession, in plain words, is the fixed order deciding who inherits the crown, and William stood next in it, which meant his household should have been consulted before any change touching his children. It was not. The decision was made quietly, warmly, and with what Camilla believed were good intentions. But good intentions had walked straight through the one door William had asked the whole family to keep shut. The photograph was taken on a bright afternoon. The children were simply playing, unaware, safe in the belief that this garden belonged to them. The lens caught them in a moment that was never meant for anyone outside the family. And Camilla, standing at the centre, smiled, believing she was building unity. She did not understand yet that she had just handed William's deepest fear back to him in print. Sophie learned of the extended access first, through a quiet word from a member of the Windsor staff who had felt uneasy about the whole thing. The trusted confidant carried the truth carefully to Catherine, because Sophie understood what it would do to William once he knew. And so, on the grey morning the magazine appeared, William was not only seeing a photograph, he was seeing a promise broken inside the one place he had sworn would always be safe. Now the story returns to the present, and to the moment the prince decided that this could not be smoothed over. William stood up. The prince had been still for so long that the movement itself felt loud. He walked to the window that looked out over the very grounds now printed in a magazine, and his hand pressed flat against the frame, hard until it went pale at the knuckles. William was not a man who broke his composure easily. That was exactly why the room understood how far this had gone. William asked for Camilla to be brought to Windsor, not to a palace office. To Windsor itself, to the house beside the garden she had opened up, because he wanted her to stand in the place she had exposed. And while the family waited, the quiet became heavy. Catherine stood near the door. Anne arrived without being called, having already decided the matter was too serious to be left to soft words. When Camilla entered, the Queen understood the room before anyone spoke. Camilla saw the magazine on the table, open to the garden. Camilla saw William at the window, unable at first to turn around. Camilla saw Catherine's face and Anne's stillness, and something in her began to fall. The reaction moved around the room in the way this family's reactions always did. William looked at the photograph and his silence deepened. Catherine looked at Camilla and her hurt turned cold. Anne looked at the whole scene and her patience hardened into judgment. Camilla looked at all of them and, for the first time, could not lift her chin. William cleared the room of aides. The prince wanted no witnesses, no notes, no careful household record of what was about to be said. He wanted only the family, the photograph, and the truth. And when the door closed, William finally turned around. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence in that Windsor room was not empty. It was full of every year the family had spent making space for Camilla, every quiet effort to fold her into the whole, every private hope that she would one day simply belong. All of that effort now sat on the table beside the open magazine, and it could not survive the photograph printed there. Everyone in the room could feel it slipping away. Anne spoke first, because Anne always forced clarity when others hesitated. The Princess Royal did not soften anything. Anne looked at Camilla and named it plainly. "This is not a misunderstanding," Anne said. "It is a line," and she crossed it. A councillor of state, in plain words, is a senior royal trusted to act with real authority in the family's affairs, and Anne was one. So when Anne named the breach, it carried weight. It stopped being a mistake and became a matter of judgment. Then William spoke, and the prince did not raise his voice. William looked at Camilla, and then at the photograph of his children in their garden, and he said the words that would define the entire day. "You did to them what the cameras did to her," William said quietly. The words landed like a verdict. William did not need to say Diana's name. Everyone in the room heard it anyway. Camilla opened her mouth and found she had nothing to answer with because there was no answer. Catherine looked away. Anne did not. And William, having finally said the thing he had carried since breakfast, made the decision that gave this day its title. Camilla would not set foot in Windsor again. Later, in a smaller room, William spoke with Camilla without the others. No Anne, no Catherine, no photograph on the table between them, only the prince and the woman who had opened his children's garden to the world. William did not begin with anger. The prince began with something quieter and harder to hear. He told Camilla that he had tried for years to make room for her. He had defended her in private when others would not. He had wanted, for his father's sake, to believe she was part of the family, and he told her that this one act had undone all of it, not because she wanted to be loved, but because of what she had been willing to risk to feel it. Camilla tried to explain. The Queen said she had only wanted the family to look united. She said she had believed a warm image would heal the old distance, not deepen it. I only wanted them to see us as one family, Camilla said. But even as the Queen spoke, her voice thinned, because she could hear now how small that reason sounded beside the children's garden and Diana's name. Then William delivered the decision. The prince spoke quietly, but the words were final. Camilla would no longer be welcome at Windsor, not for weekends, not for gatherings, not for the private family life she had breached. Windsor would remain what William had always needed it to be, a place his children were safe, and Camilla had lost her place inside it. Camilla did not argue. The Queen's composure, held so carefully for so many years, finally broke, and what broke through was not anger, it was shame. Camilla understood, fully and at last, that she had not lost Windsor because William was cruel. She had lost it because she had reached for acceptance by spending the one thing that was never hers to spend, the safety of his children. That was a wound she had made herself. The reaction settled quietly over them all. William delivered the ban and felt no triumph, only tiredness. Camilla received it and felt the shame rise where pride used to be. Catherine, told afterward, felt sorrow more than victory. Anne felt only the cold certainty that the decision was right. And here the story turns, the way this family's stories always turn, away from revenge. Aides quietly asked whether the family wished to see Camilla publicly named, publicly blamed, publicly ruined for what she had done. The moment was there. The anger was there. William refused it. The prince did not want Camilla destroyed. William asked for one thing only, the thing he had wanted from the beginning. He asked that his children's privacy be protected by a firm new rule, and that Windsor's private spaces never again be open to a lens without his and Catherine's direct consent. Catherine asked for the same, not punishment, a boundary, not humiliation, the safety of the children restored. What William asked for was written into a private protocol that same week. A private protocol, in plain words, is an internal family rule that controls how sensitive matters are handled behind closed doors. This one was short and absolute. No access to the children's private spaces at Windsor without the direct personal agreement of both parents in writing every time. There would be no more warm assumptions. There would be no more doors left open by goodwill. The lesson had cost too much to be trusted to memory again. Then Anne confirmed the part that made it final. The Princess Royal made clear this was not a rift to be smoothed over with time and soft words. Anne said plainly that there was no way back from this, not because the family wished to punish Camilla forever, but because trust of this kind, once broken around children, does not simply return. Camilla lowered her eyes and did not disagree. She reached for nothing. She promised only that she would never cross that line again. Catherine did not smile. The princess only nodded, because the promise could not undo the harm, but it could stop the harm from being repeated. By the next morning, the private wound had become a national story. No official statement could compete with what people had already felt when they saw the photograph and understood, slowly, that it should never have existed. The country did not know every detail, but the country knew enough. A grandmother figure had appeared in a private image of children who were supposed to be protected, and the family had closed a door. A major newspaper carried the story under one quiet, heavy headline: "The gates that will not reopen." A newspaper front page, in plain words, is the first thing millions of people see before they read a single word of the article, and this one turned a private family decision into a public judgment. William was not shown as harsh. William was shown as a father. A palace statement followed, short and careful. A palace statement, in plain words, is an official message released to shape public understanding of a sensitive event. This one confirmed new protections around images of the children and around access to private family spaces at Windsor. It did not name Camilla. It did not need to. The country had already understood who the new rule was for. Then a broadcaster framed the whole affair in a single line that spread everywhere by nightfall. This was never about a photograph, the broadcaster said. It was about a promise. That sentence gave people the words for what they already felt. This was not a family being cold. This was a father keeping the one promise he had made to his children, the promise his own mother was never allowed to keep for him. Outside the gates near Windsor, a small crowd gathered, and it was made up mostly of parents. They did not carry signs, they left no angry words. Some left small notes about their own children, and one left a single line about Diana. Windsor mattered because it was the family's home, and the quiet crowd made the story feel less like gossip and more like something every parent understood. Camilla heard of the crowd and withdrew into silence. Catherine heard of it and did not celebrate. William heard of it and understood that the country had recognized the wound as its own. By afternoon, the crowd had grown, though it never became a protest. Mothers stood with prams. Older visitors, who had waited at royal gates before for very different reasons, stood quietly at the railings. No one shouted. No one demanded anything. They simply stood, and their stillness carried a message the palace could not have written better itself. Some things are not the public's to see, and a family had finally said so out loud. The public sentiment settled into one clear feeling. People did not see cruelty in what William had done. People saw a father drawing a line the world should have drawn for him long ago. The nation remembered a young woman chased by cameras decades earlier, and the nation understood, at last, why her son would never let it happen again. When the noise settled, the changes remained. Camilla's access to Windsor was withdrawn, quietly and completely. A firm new protocol was placed around images of the children, closing the door that had been left open, and the private garden behind the houses returned to what it had always been meant to be, a place where no lens was allowed and where children could simply be children. William carried the weight of it without complaint. The prince had not wanted to ban anyone. He had wanted only for one promise to be kept. He understood more clearly than ever that a home is not made safe by walls alone. It is made safe by people who refuse to open the gate, even when opening it would be warm, even when opening it would be easy, even when the person asking believes she is only trying to be loved. That was the lesson Windsor taught the family. Warmth built on a broken boundary is not warmth at all. Acceptance taken by risking a child's safety is not acceptance, it is trespass. And a promise made to the young must not bend, no matter how gentle the reason for bending it sounds. Camilla learned that belonging cannot be seized, only earned. Anne learned nothing new because Anne had always known, and William learned that protecting his children was not coldness. It was the truest thing he would ever do. The palace, too, learned something it should never have needed to learn twice. Rules written out of grief are not written for cruelty. They are written because someone, somewhere, once paid a terrible price for their absence. William had built his fence around Windsor out of memory, out of loss, out of a boy's understanding of what cameras could do to a person he loved. The family had treated that fence as caution. After the photograph, they understood it as wisdom. William banned Camilla from Windsor because Windsor was the one place his children were promised safety. Anne confirmed there was no way back because trust broken around children does not quietly return. And in the space left behind, one truth remained sharper than any statement. The cameras had taken enough from this family already. They would not be handed the next generation, not by a stranger with a lens, and not by a queen who mistook trespass for love. Catherine never asked for the story to be told this way, and William never wanted it told at all. But those who understood the family knew what had really happened. A father had closed a gate that should never have been opened. He had not destroyed anyone. He had simply refused to let the past repeat itself inside his children's home. In the end, that was enough. The photograph was withdrawn, the garden was quiet again, and Windsor's gate, this time, stayed shut. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, please do not forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.